Okay, good morning and welcome to the Leicestershire Safer Community Strategy Board. I think we've probably got too many people on here to go through all the introductions. I know we have got new people on here, so if you just want to say where you're from and your name when you do actually speak, that'll probably be helpful, but I'm sure we'll get to know each other soon enough. I do need to leave bang on 12 o'clock today, so I do need to keep to time today. I've got another appointment that I need to get to, so I will be keeping strict time going forward. So have we got any apologies, Ewan?
Yeah, just a few apologies. Christine Wise from Rutland, Neil Bannister, Sarah Russell, Wendy Hope from the ICB, but we're expecting Alison Taylor-Prowse subbing for her, Mark Smith from Oadby, and Jonathan Starbuck from Leicestershire Police.
Lovely, thanks very much, Ewan. So on to item 2, minutes of the previous meeting. We need to make a slight alteration to minute 11 small 3. So it was noted after the meeting that the whole family relationship service would be provided by Family Lives, not by the Teen Health Service that was said in the meeting. So just a factual correction. So with that, we'll just quickly go through the minutes for those of us who are here. So is there anything on page 2 that anyone wants to raise? Anything on page 3? Anything on page 4? Anything on page 5? And page 6 just has the dates on there. So with that slight amendment under item 11, we're all happy to accept the minutes. Any matters arising from the minutes from anybody? Okay, just going to change the agenda slightly as well, because some people have to leave early. So after item 6, I propose to take item 11. So Millicent can leave. Is that okay with everyone if we just have a slight amendment to the agenda for everybody? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to item 4 then, which is the action log. Is there anything anyone wants to pick up on here or ask any questions about the action log? I think most of them are in hand or being dealt with at the moment. So there are some explanations in there to what we're doing. Okay, no questions from anybody. Okay, on to item 5. Any declarations of interest on anything on the agenda? No. Okay, we'll move on to item 6. So Rutland County Council membership of the Leicester Safer Community Strategy Board. Rick, over to you to present this.
Apologies, delay there, trying to turn my mic off. On again, sorry. Right, this concerns Rutland County Council membership of the Leicestershire Safer Community Strategy Board. There's been a report circulated in relation to this. The report seeks approval for Rutland County Council becoming a member of the board. It sets out background information, the rationale, the legal basis and the potential implications and benefits, together with any recommendations being asked of the board today. Unsurprisingly, the benefits of extending membership are the same as those potentially available to all the current membership. Community safety priorities across Leicestershire and Rutland do align, and extending the membership provides an opportunity to seek better collaborative working, share ideas and expertise, and if appropriate, resources and costs for shared benefit. I'm not going to reiterate what's in the report. There are some ancillary considerations that I want to highlight, which are within the report. And those are, in summary, an amendment to the board name to reflect the additional Tier 1 membership to the Leicestershire and Rutland Safer Community Strategy Board, changes to the terms of reference to reflect the additional membership, including the chairing arrangements and the vice chairing arrangements, and a copy of that amended terms of reference is attached with the papers. The the Leicestershire, ancillary to that, the Leicestershire Community Safety Agreement I'm proposing should also incorporate Rutland County Council shared community safety priorities to make sure that it reflects the whole board's work streams, and also to add Rutland County Council to the performance dashboard that is circulated to everybody within the board. Both Leicestershire County Council and Rutland County Council respective cabinets have considered and agreed the proposed joining of Rutland to this board, and really today is seeking approval from the board itself for that for them to join. The recommendations are set out within the report. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Rick. And as previously, the current Vice Chairman Neil Bannister, I've spoken to him about stepping down to allow Rutland to take over the Vice Chair of this board, and he's happy to do that. Just one point from me, Rick, on page 16 at the bottom there, membership of the board. It does refer to Leicestershire CCGs, and I don't think they exist anymore. Should that be the ICB, or so we probably need to just update that and take out Leicestershire CCGs?
Yeah, that should be ICB, so I can change that one.
Yeah, we can just change that. That'd be fantastic. Thank you. Les.
Morning, Chair, and good morning, everybody else. Les Furthermore, Blaby District Council and co-chair of the Blaby Hinkley Bosworth Community Safety Partnership. Same as previous, Chair. It's a non-question for me, and I've just checked. The wording is sufficient for the lead member at Rutland to change. So very happy to propose and accept Rick's recommendations. Thank you.
Thanks, Les. Gail.
Thank you. I've worked out the wording that would be more comfortable for us, and that's the county councillor with responsibility for safer communities, if that's okay. And also under substitutes for Rutland, could we have it as another cabinet member, please? It might be pedantic, but I've got a reason. I won't go into it.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Thank you.
That's fine. Like that, we can make those slight alterations. You can do that. Okay. Any other questions or comments from anyone else? Okay. So the recommendations are that we join with Rutland and become a Leicestershire and Rutland Safer Community Strategy Board. Is everyone happy with that? Lovely. Thank you very much. Okay. So we'll move on now to item 11. So this is the Violence Reduction Network update. So Millicent Gant, I think, is going to take us through this. So I'll hand over to you. Millicent.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for letting me go a little bit earlier. Grace just does send her apologies. I'll just share my screen so I can present for you. Okay, is everyone okay with that? You see it?
Yeah, that's fine. We can
Lovely. Okay, so I've been asked to provide a briefing on the work of the Violence Reduction Network, and I'll use this opportunity to provide an update on our serious violence duty and how it's going, because it's hugely positive. My name is Millie Gant, and I am the temporary head of delivery at the Violence Reduction Network. Previously, I was the programme manager. I'm just trying to see if I can get through the slides. Okay, first one then is I just want to introduce the Violence Reduction Network. We call it a Violence Reduction Network within Leicester, but we are part of 21 now violence reduction units across England and Wales. Just to note that we are not operational, we're not commissioners, and our core function is to offer the leadership, establish this really rich core membership, and we work with all agencies, and we provide strategic coordination of the local response to serious violence. I note that everybody has got these slides within their pack, so I won't go through everyone in great detail. Okay, so just before I go on to our approach, if I just explain how our violence reduction unit is made up. We've got a very, very small team, which many of you have met. So we have Grace as a director, myself as the acting head of delivery and programme manager. We're supported by head of families and education. we have a trauma-informed lead, head of data and evaluation, an analyst, and a communities lead. So we are a very, very small team. So just moving into our approach, I just want to tailor this around the serious violence duty. So if we look at how we approach serious violence in our areas, we do take a public health approach, and that I'm just going to go through 6 main points. So we focus on a defined population. And for the serious violence duty, the specified authorities will need to agree defined geographic boundary within which they will operate for the purposes of this duty. And we have a strategic needs assessment, which will include a common understanding of those cohorts that are most vulnerable to serious violence, and the local strategy will need to demonstrate how each area is focusing their resources on that population most in need of support. We work with and for communities. So for the duty, the localities will be required to embed the voices and lived experience of the communities they serve. We use a whole system, so we're not constrained by organisational boundaries. And in order to successfully deliver the duty holders are required to work across professional and geographical boundaries in order to deliver a really rich, truly multi-agency approach. The 4th point is around focusing on generating long-term as well as short-term solutions. So we need to make sure that the localities are considering both short and long-term solutions in addressing the drivers of serious violence in their areas when developing the SNA and the local strategy. The identification of solutions should always give due consideration to the delivery of the most effective and impactful services available in our areas. The 5th point is around data, and the specified authorities are recommended to pool all the data that they hold individually, and this creates a new understanding locally. And the last point is rooted in the evidence of effectiveness. This is a really important one, and where possible, localities must learn from the experiences of others to guide their activities so we know which can be the most effective. And just on that right-hand side is the public health approach, which I know many of you will be familiar with. Next slide is about data sharing. So within the VRN, this is a real strong area of our work. It's led by the head of data and evaluation, supported by our senior analyst. And the list that you can see is just some of the many data sets that we use to be able to create our strategic needs assessment, which I know you all have. I just wanted to highlight the multi-agency dashboard that's been developed by Beth, and it's absolutely fantastic in identifying some of those themes, and it's also got a great ability to be able to tailor down into specific areas or issues. Next slide is around deep dives. This is just some of the evidence that we've produced, and all of these are on our website. So the ones that you can see on the screen is preventing serious violence after school. That came in response to one of our strategic needs assessment. So we've got lots of information that you can have a look at after this presentation. Okay, next slide is around co-production. I just really wanted to highlight some of the things that the VRN was doing, the participation. That's the Leicester Hope Hack. That was last year, and that was for children and young people. We've co-designed something called Live Safe, which is pages around information for young people with lots of local signposting. We've had 3 rounds of our community leadership showcases, which is ending a 12-week course for local community leaders to develop their skills, and that provides us a real strong network locally. The next picture at the bottom left is the Community Oversight and Scrutiny Group. We call it the COG, and this provides us some oversight in some of the interventions that we're doing locally. And the last picture at the bottom is around our newest intervention called the Phoenix programme, which is a focused deterrence model launched in June, and it's having some fantastic results locally. This is around designing our interventions. So our work, we work with the Youth Endowment Fund, we call them the YEF, and the toolkit on the right is from them. And we really want to know what works, and we focus on gaps in local provision. We use lots of available evidence, and we make sure that everything that we do is co-produced based on a theory of change with really strong outcome monitoring and evaluation in place. This is just a whistle-stop tour of some of our interventions. So using a bit of a theory of change, you can see that our interventions span across primary, secondary and tertiary prevention. So we have Mentors in Violence Prevention, which has been going for a few years now. The REACH programme, which is due to have an extension, early intervention service, our VIP project, which is within A&E and custody, and the Phoenix programme. So moving on to evaluations, another really strong area of our violence reduction network. And this comes from Dr. Stevie Jade Hardy, who's leaving us in the next few weeks to work elsewhere supporting the partnership. I just want to highlight that outcome monitoring framework again, which is on our top right. It presents fantastic data in the outcomes, and it allows us to be able to focus on specific areas and data sets as needed. So this is the next slide around the serious violence duty, which I know that all of you will be having some impact for. I just wanted to spend a few minutes just speaking around the duty and also an update on where we are locally, because it's going really, really well. So as you can see on the slide, the duty requires specific authorities for one or more local government areas to work together. And you can see those specified authorities, which are mainly the CSPs and all of those organisations there. And our timescale is 31st of January 2024. We are steps ahead at the minute. So if I just move to the next slide to show you the 4 key priorities. So the first one is defining serious violence. We've already completed that, and what we've done locally is broaden that definition to include sexual and domestic violence. Our second requirement, which we've already done, is defining the local area. So we've agreed that we have a strategic partnership board, and we've recruited a position her name's Morgan, and what she's doing is coordinating all of that activity. And we've got the Violence Reduction Network as the local partnership model. Our third requirement is understanding the local issues. That's nearly completed. So what we've got an analyst completing is locally based violence profiles for each CSP, which will be delivered out as soon as they are completed. And the final one is the preparation, publication and implementation of a strategy. We've had some brilliant co-production events, and that's led to the strategy being completed. It's in its final stages, and once it's had those final checks, it will come round for comments. So an update on where we are locally. We've had 3 additional resources in place. We've got one that's just in the process of being recruited. So we have a data analyst, Ethan, that is completing them locally based profiles. We've got 2 partnership officers, one's in post, Shumira, and I know that she's been doing some great work connecting up all of the CSPs and partners. And we have the board officer, Morgan, that I've just mentioned. And I don't think there's anything else on the SV duty. It's going really, really well. And I think that is the last slide that I've got. So thank you. I appreciate that was a whistle-stop tour. I'm happy to answer some questions. And additionally, if anybody wants some more specific briefings, we're happy to come down to any team presentation boards and just present that. Thank you.
Thanks, Millie. Just a quick question from me. The Phoenix programme, did I see that right, that it goes up to age 65 now?
It does. It's got a very strict criteria, Chair, and we've identified the people that causes the most harm through criteria such as having been arrested for a serious violence offence within 2 years. And some of those people are between the ages of 12 and 65, with the main cohort around 18 to 25.
So is that moved away from the concentrating on the up to 25-year-olds then? Because that's where the Violence Reduction Network was kind of concentrating, weren't they, up to 25? So we're starting to open out for older adults now.
Well, just because of the definition being broadened, we will be, by virtue of like the section domestic violence coming in with those figures naturally being a little bit higher than children and young people. But for the purposes of the Phoenix programme, that's not funded by the OPCC or the Home Office. That's funded through the Youth Endowment Fund. We are one of 5 pilot sites using this focused deterrence model. So we're funded till it's August 2025. So it's only for the purposes of this pilot. But I'm really happy to send some more information if you want to hear about that, because it is a great opportunity locally to use all of the information, and it's heavily evaluated just to see whether the focused deterrence model will work here, because the studies have proved it reduces serious violence by 33%.
Okay, yeah, I'd be really pleased to get some more information on that. You know, send it over to you, and then we can send it out to all board members to have a look through that. I just picked up that age difference, so yeah, that's really interesting. So very happy to get some more info about that, Millie. That'd be great.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody. All the information is within the agenda, but please do reach out if there's anything that we can do for any additional boards or teams, because we really want to raise the profile of this serious violence duty, but also some of the work that we're doing for the VRN. So once again, really appreciate you moving me forward so I can get to my next meeting.
That's okay. Is there any last questions for Millie before we let her go? No. Brilliant. Thanks ever so much, Millie. Thank you for stepping in for Grace.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye. Bye.
Okay, we'll go back up to our agenda now, back up to item 7. So our Safer Communities performance, Q1 starts on page 21. Over to you, Rick.
Thank you, Chair. The data underpinning the Safer Communities Q1 performance report is contained in the online dashboard via the link in the report. Just a little caveat, a reminder that the report outlines broad trends, and local performance can and does differ from time to time. So the report should be read with that in mind. The online dashboard is an interactive dashboard, so a lot of the data can be broken down to local level if localities want to look at it. There isn't anything exceptional to report within the report itself. The past months, many indicators have been on an upward trajectory, but after some lengthy periods, most of them are actually stabilising now and levelling off. So the word of the report really is levelling off, really, if I go through each of the areas. So taking each performance category in turn, in relation to crime, total crime has been on the increase and is now above pre-COVID levels in actual fact, and that I'm talking about total crime now. Although it's at a similar level for the same time last year, if you follow. So the last 2 quarters have shown total crime has levelled off, and you'll hear me using those terms quite a lot within the report. Burglary, both residential and commercial, and in fact vehicle crime, have all levelled off following steady increases, and the levels are very similar to the levels the same time last year. Violence with injury rates have shown a sustained rise over the last 2 years in actual fact, and they're well above pre-COVID levels, and the same increases have been regional and national, so we're not out of kilter with other localities. There are, though, early signs of this particular key performance indicator levelling off as well. Moving on to reducing offending and reoffending, the youth justice KPIs are collated in arrears, so the actual data within this report is the same as the last report, but it is generally positive. First-time entrance to the criminal justice system is on a downward trend, but that downward trend is slowing. Reoffending by young offenders, still a positive rate. Current rate is 0.53 per thousand compared to 0.00. And young offenders actively engaged in education, employment and training, again, a positive figure compared to last year, that is. Moving on to repeat victimisation and vulnerable victims, the MARAT repeat referral rates are stable at 37%. You'll recall that we had reached a height of 51% some time ago, but that's been a steady drop to below the Safe Lives threshold of upper threshold of 40%. So that's currently 37%. Referrals to domestic abuse and serious sexual assault support services are being covered by a separate report within this meeting, so I'll leave that. Domestic violence with injury, domestic crime and incidents and sexual offences rates per thousand had been rising steadily, and that's been over quite a period, but they are a subset of the violence with injury rates, so that's not a surprise. But those are starting to show signs of levelling off. Antisocial behaviour and satisfaction. The survey data is quite negative, showing satisfaction. They have dropped year on year. But that is only 2 questions from the Leicestershire County Council Insight survey. So I would add that caveat around that particular piece of data. The actual incident data is taken from 2 areas, as you know, from the police reports and from the case managed ASB that appears on Sentinel, the partnership case management system. And both those sources show that ASB over a period is on the way down and has been on a sustained downward trend as far as reporting is concerned, I would hasten to add. There are substantive differences in some localities, I would hasten to add there. And the final performance category, preventing terrorism and radicalisation, I would say that the numbers here are very low. We look at reports of hate crime, and the reports remain very low, albeit that the number of reports is increasing, albeit by a very small amount year on year. And that's a summary of the performance, Chair.
Thanks, Rick. And I would urge, especially the new CSP chairs, to click on that link and look at the dashboard, and obviously they can drill down to their own particular areas. So it's definitely worth keeping an eye on those dashboards and looking how you compare to other districts across the county as well. So thank you very much for that, Rick. Are there any questions or comments for Rick? Les?
I'd be failing myself if I didn't ask a silly question. Hi, Rick. So there's a concern there flagged that total crime is on the increase, even though it's levelling off, it's above pre-COVID. So is there any thoughts as to what is causing that?
I think within the data, there are certain types of offence that are on the increase, and I'm quite sure, I don't want to speak for police colleagues, but I'm quite sure that they would say that there are more categories of crime nowadays, particularly with online crime, and that might well account for the increases. But that is pure conjecture on my part.
Yeah, okay.
I think, Les, probably cost of living has crept into this a bit. I think shoplifting has slightly gone up as well, isn't it, and stuff. So there's always pressures around something happening, isn't there, that puts crime up.
Yeah, I just always have a query about evidence and statistics that says, okay, I can see what the numbers say. My interest is why, and it goes back to where we've looked at drug and alcohol abuse and domestic violence. The question is why? What is going on? Because if we can't identify what's going on, it's very difficult to design the intervention strategies. So anyway, back to you, Chair. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Ledge. Gurjit.
Thank you, Chair. Not really connected to Rick's presentation, but you mentioned a number of new chairs. Rick is going to be reaching out to CSP chairs and senior officers around training specifically on DHRs, which will only be kind of like a 1 hour meeting, but just an offer really that we're happy to put on maybe just a 1 or 2 hour training session, a bit of a grantum really, just to give an overview of each of the priority areas that we all work to. Happy to look, because we've tried to put on training previously and it hasn't, we've not been able to align diaries. So happy even if it helps to do an evening session, but the offer is there and we'll get in touch separate to this meeting. I think it would just be useful, particularly as I say, for the new CSP chairs, to understand some of the subject matter that we're alluding to when we talk about data and intelligence and some of the work streams.
Yeah, thanks, Gerd. I'm sure that'd be appreciated, I think.
Yeah, Gerd, you used the 3-letter word and you need to explain to the new chairs what a DHR is, perhaps.
Domestic homicide review, apologies.
Thanks, Gerd. Yeah, I'm sure members will be interested, and probably an evening one might be easier for district colleagues because a lot of those work as well, don't they? So, Darren.
Thank you, Chair. Everyone loves a TLA, as in a 3-lettered acronym. So going back to Les's point, from local briefings I've had, the police often run sort of focused campaigns, and then that in turn boosts the reporting, which then distorts your local figures. So there's always context behind this. So I just thought I'd add that to the mix.
And we will also have constantly that the police have changed how they categorise stuff and how they report things. So our stats, we are constantly battling about what does this actually tell us, because they change their rules, how they report stuff. So yeah, we take all that on board, and yeah, it's very difficult just to look at stats individually, but actually seeing what's going on in the ground, which is what the CSPs do in their places, is much more informative than some of the stats that we get to see. But we have to have some data. So yeah, it's taking all that into context, isn't it? Okay, thanks for that, Rick. Okay, we'll go on to item 8, the Office of Police and Crime Commissioners update, pages 27. I've not seen, is Saj on here who's presenting? I've seen Claire on here.
I can't see him on the line.
No, I can't. I'll introduce
got me
Claire.
instead,
Claire, who is the new CEO of the Office for Police and Crime Commission. I'll let Claire introduce herself, and
yeah.
I take it you're taking us through this then, Claire.
I am, yeah. Thanks very much, Chair. So for those of you that haven't met me yet, I am in week 3 of the new CEO for the OPCC. I took over from Andy Shampness on the 11th of September. So Saj has written this report and submitted it. I'm going to take you through some of the main points today, and then I'm really happy to take any questions or comments away. As I'm only in week 3, I might not know all the answers for you today, but really happy to take those away. I am on a steep learning curve for acronyms because my background isn't police and crime. So I probably won't use any today, which might be helpful for those of you that are new like me. So the OPCC, we applied for Safer Streets 5 for 2 areas, Oadby and Wigston and Melton Mowbray, for about 300k each, focusing on neighbourhood crime for Oadby and Wigston and antisocial behaviour for Melton Mowbray. I'm not allowed to say for definite that we have been successful. We have to wait for final confirmation in the coming weeks, but the team did have a meeting just this past week, which I understand was very positive. So those programs, if we are confirmed as being successful, will roll out over the next kind of 18 months. In terms of the CSPs, I understand that we've now got 50 projects that are kind of on track and ready to kind of run for the second half of the year. I think half of that budget has been allocated now and has been kind of spent by partners. We've had a number of bid running workshops or bid writing workshops to help partners kind of increase the chances of success of those bids coming in, and they've been really popular, I understand, with quite a lot of participants, and has hugely increased the quality and so the success rate of those bids that are coming through to us, which is really good. On another programme that we're running, we have developed a 360 virtual reality film, which is getting ready to be rolled out to schools on the kind of the safety of being safe online and social media, and who to raise if you have issues with that kind of online activity. I watched the video this week, and it's really good. It's really good. So we're just going through a process at the moment to select a partner that will help roll that out to schools kind of across the 2 counties and the cities. And coming from a background in education, I know that's going to be really, really popular. We've also done some liaison with warning zones on that project, so that the two are aligned. In terms of just a quick look forward, aiming to increase those grassroots applications for the Commissioner Safety Fund. We've got another small fund round opening, supporting partners through the serious violence duty rollout. You've already had a presentation today from the VRN. A potential look at developing new people zones. The idea of the people zone scheme was that those programmes would become sustainable over the time, so that we would be able to move around the county and select alternative areas. So we're just looking at what the data tells us about where we might want to concentrate on next. And then the big push will be for Safer Streets 5, if successful, and rolling that out over the next 18 months. So I think you've got most of that information in the report in front of you. As I said, Chair, really happy to take any questions or comments away with me if I don't know the answer today.
Many thanks, Claire. You've done really well for 3 weeks, so well done. My first question to you was going to be the Safe Streets bid. Were you successful? But you've already covered that off, so hopefully we can look to a positive announcement in another week or so. Yeah. Just a couple of points from me. I know what started this financial year was the CSP bidding for their projects. And maybe it's worth just getting some feedback, I don't know if members or officers on the call, about how that's actually working, whether they're happy with how that's going forward. So happy to hear back from anyone about that, because obviously that was a big change for the CSPs. My third point was about what you're doing with the children, the virtual reality stuff. Really, really good to get in early with schools. I've just started getting a sense that gambling online is kind of one of those hot topics that's coming forward. And I just wonder if there's anything on the agenda for the OPCC to look at that sort of thing, aimed at getting in early in schools about the dangers of gambling and online gambling and stuff like that. So I don't know if you just want to take that away, and it might be something that the Police and Crime Panel kind of look at as well. But I just get this feeling that that's heading somewhere as well with this online stuff, so that could be included in the stuff that you do with schools.
Yeah, thank you. I can take that away for some consultation in the office. Thank you.
Okay. Pep, do you want to give some feedback on the CSP bidding?
Yeah, well, it's been 12 months of getting used to the new process and getting our local delivery partners used to it as well. So it has been, got to say, it's been onerous at times, doing lots and lots of work to put together bids that we hope are going to be successful, only to find that when it gets to the OPCC panel, we discover there's a duplication of funding that we didn't know about. For example, the Commissioners Fund, we had one knocked back because you're getting funding through the Commissioning Fund, so it's double funding, so no. And then we're being left to kind of feed that decision back to our local delivery providers. They're not happy with the outcome, and we become sort of the middleman in that scenario, which isn't great for us. We did do, we were aware of one project that attended your bidding sort of workshop. And that did seem to work really well for them. That was the bid that had the fewest questions back from the OPCC. So that was good. And I guess the message there is to encourage others to attend any future ones that you're planning to put on, because it looks like that was useful. I mean, we've struggled to spend our allocation as a result of the extra work that is now required to be able to commission projects. It has made it more difficult for us. That's been our experience. The hope is that we'll be better prepared next year. I'm telling our local delivery providers, you need to be talking to us in January if you want to be getting stuff initiated. It requires a bit of a crystal ball. So you in January, you have to be thinking about what might be happening in summer and sort of tailor your projects accordingly. And I mean, for example, last summer we predicted there'd be a spike in ASB during the summer. It didn't materialise. So, you know, there is that sort of aspect to it as well. I've got to say, Saj has been doing his best to engage with us, support us, try and help us get bids over the line. So there's no criticism of him or his support in my feedback.
Okay, that's really useful to hear, actually. So I'm sure Claire's been taking notes on that, whether there's some tweaking we can do to make it easier.
We can take some of that away and see if there's anything we can do about kind of improving some of that process, especially around that double funding comment that you made. You know, if you guys knew exactly what was going on with our office in your area in the first place, then you wouldn't be inclined to bring forward something that proposes the same kind of activity, would you? So I wonder if there's some earlier sharing that we can do from our side that would prevent that particular bit.
Okay, thanks, Pep. That's been really useful. Thank you. Gurjit.
Thank you, Chair. Just to echo what Pep said there, I'm hearing similar comments from districts and boroughs and Rutland. So yeah, that's really helpful, and I think Pep's articulated it all really well. Just a couple of other comments from me. Pep mentioned the phrase middlemen and coordination. So providers, voluntary sector, as well as districts and boroughs approach the OPCC for information and support and are getting redirected back to me at county, and I'm not really understanding why. I think Claire, you mentioned communication, and I think it would be helpful if that was strengthened across the partnership between the OPCC and partners. Obviously happy to support and help and coordinate where we can, but often the information is held in the OPCC. So maybe we have a conversation outside of this meeting about us communicating more closely and then being able to support colleagues across the county and Rutland. And the only other issues were, well, not really issues, but the new ASB guidance has come out. There will be funding coming to the Police and Crime Commissioner's office. There's already the strategic ASB group, the delivery group, so really keen to ensure that we use that expertise that already exists when we look at how that funding is going to be used across LLR, because those processes are across Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland. So just a plea really that when we start looking at that work, we ought to really start looking at it now, that the expertise is already out there. And then the final thing is around, and I'm sure you're already aware of it, Claire, the domestic abuse data. Joshna's on the call as well. We won't go into it here, but just to ensure again that we've got the appropriate communication and start building back up in terms of some of those domestic abuse services and the information and the contract managing and the data that's coming out of that. And again, I think it's just an ask really that maybe you know, we do meet and just have a conversation about some of the issues and some of the work going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Gurjit. Absolutely.
Okay, I suppose just from my perspective, obviously, that the allocation of money to CSPs before was just a very random formula that no one actually knew at all. So there wasn't any oversight really of that public funding public money that was going into there, but then we don't want to create a situation where it's impossible to get things over the line as well. So it's just getting that balance that we're getting value for money and impact from public money. But I'm sure Claire's listened to all that and can take that back and see if we can make any improvements to that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Any other questions for Claire from anybody? Brilliant. Thanks, Claire, for coming and introducing yourself. And I'm sure we'll see you again very soon. Okay, on to item 9, which is our Teen Health Service. So Joanne White, I think, is presenting this for us.
Thank you, Chair. Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Joanne White, and I'm the Team Partnership Manager for the Teen Health Service. I'm also joined by Kat as well, who just wanted to start off our presentation by giving you a bit of background information on the public health side of the teen health offer. So I'll pass over to you, Kat.
Thanks, Jo. So hi, everyone. I'm Kat Blakesmith. I'm the Head of Children and Young People's Integration at Public Health in Leicestershire County Council. Just to set the scene for those of you who may not be aware, in 2012, as a result of the Health and Social Care Act, the responsibility to commission health visits and school nursing as part of the Healthy Child programme moved over to Public Health and the local authority. As part of that, in early 2022, Public Health went out to tender for 3 lots within the service, and these were 0 to 5 to 11 and 11 plus in regards to the Healthy Child programme. So the Healthy Child programme is available to all children across the country, and it's around the preventative offer to build resilience, to promote good healthy lifestyles. So like I say, in early 2022, Public Health went out to tender. As a result of that, the 0 to 5 and the 5 to 11 contract was awarded to LPT, who are delivering health visit and school nursing for primary school age children. But the 11 plus service is now being delivered by Children and Family Wellbeing Service in the local authority. It's a massive, exciting opportunity to really reach secondary school age children who, particularly with relevance to this board, who may be starting to either experience domestic abuse as a victim or starting to display unhealthy behaviours in relationships. So Jo will give you more details on the service, but so far we've been operational for 9 months and it's been a real success story. So over to you, Jo.
Not sure if you're muted, Jo.
I'm so sorry. It wouldn't be a presentation without a glitch. So the internet is dropping at the centre I'm in. So I do apologise. Let me start again. I'm just going to share my screen. Bear with. Can you all see that?
Yeah, we can see it.
Brilliant. Okay. Hopefully it won't drop out while I'm doing this. So yes, as Kat's just said, we are the Teen Health Service, so we're 11 to 19 service. We started off officially on the 1st of September last year, but we didn't have a full team in place till January this year. So we have only just really started to get in schools since around the end of February, March time. So we are a service that offers that level 1 universal support to any young person in Leicestershire who attends a secondary school. So they don't need to reside in the county, but they just do need to be attending a school secondary or above in Leicestershire. So as Kat's mentioned, we're part of the delivery of the Healthy Child programme, and our focus is on that universal prevention, which falls under CFWS, so that early help umbrella. So our priority areas, we've got 6, so these are national priority areas for teen health. So as you can see there, it's supporting resilience and wellbeing, improving healthy behaviours and risk taking, promoting self-care and improving health literacy, supporting healthy relationships, supporting complex and additional health and wellbeing needs, and supporting vulnerable young people while improving health inequalities. Alongside those, we also have our 3 local priorities for Leicestershire. So they are supporting and improving emotional wellbeing with a key focus around self-esteem, body image, and building resilience. Our second is supporting young people to make healthier choices. So that's around substance misuse with a particular focus on cannabis, and then reducing alcohol consumption. And then our third local priority is around healthy relationships. So this is to build positive relationships, reduce violence in intimate relationships, and promote positive sexual health and well-being. So our current delivery, as Kat said, we are a new service. So we have put this offer in place after consultation with young people and looking at ways that we can deliver our best possible service within the schools. So there's 43 schools in Leicestershire, and I can say we are in all schools. So there is a health and wellbeing officer who has a presence once a week in the schools. And during that one-day delivery of the service, they will cover a drop-in session. So there might be before school, after school, maybe lunchtime, break time, and there will be a focus on a wellbeing drop-in and also a sexual health. So where we might sign a young person up to C-card, or we might distribute as well. We also offer groups within schools and within the community, so around our children and family wellbeing centres. So we've been delivering a React group, but we've also recently just been trained in the Friends programme, which is an evidence-based model that we will be delivering as of next month, so in a couple of weeks, and that will focus on Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4. So that's with the wellbeing focus. We've also got a healthy relationships group as well that we deliver currently in the community. We didn't get very much uptake in schools, which was a bit of a surprise. So we will be pushing that as we've now started the new academic year. And we also offer pop-up sessions. So if a school reports that there's a specific need in the school, so for example, we've been doing exam stress, transition support for those new year 7s that have recently started. We will put those on as well. So we can do that either in assembly, a tutor group, or maybe a smaller group if it's more appropriate. And then we also offer one-to-one brief support. So a health and wellbeing officer can be allocated up to 5 cases at a time, and they would work with a young person who's maybe presented with more complexities than a group could offer. We've also excited news about our teen health website that's just recently gone live. So that will be another point of online self-help support for young people, and we're also hoping to develop on the same website a page for parents, carers and professionals to have access to for maybe additional support or advice. So just some brief data. So from January to June, we've received over 1,000 referrals into the Teen Health Service. So from those referrals, we've managed to do sexual health clinics in 19 of our schools, where we've signed up over 1,000 young people to the C-card offer, and that's been delivered in conjunction with sexual health. We've done drop-in sessions as well, which is those clinics that I've mentioned, and seen over 700 young people from January to June. And we've delivered over 100 groups across Leicestershire in secondary schools and the community. So that was from June to March. So the focus was around wellbeing and the React. Haven't included the summer groups that we've delivered, or since we've restarted back in September. So we've not got that data to hand just at the moment. We will have at the end of the month. And then we've also worked with over 80 young people on a one-to-one basis as well. So we're very keen and passionate to collate young people's voice along our teen health journey and establishing and developing the service as we move forward. I won't read all this voice out, but we've had some great feedback from parents, from young people themselves, and also from schools, which is a credit to the health and wellbeing officers who are out there doing all that good work on the ground. So just really briefly, you've got myself who's a team and partnership manager, and you've got Amy and Emma who cover the east and the west of the county, and there are their team members who are the health and wellbeing officers. So in total, we've got 15 who cover the county. So bearing in mind there's 43 schools that we're in, it's quite a lot of work that they're out there doing. On average, they've got allocated 3 schools each that they oversee and support with. Again, our referral form is done online by a young person, a professional, a family member. The majority of referrals that we're receiving at the moment is predominantly from schools. So I'd say 90% of referrals that we're receiving are from schools, with around 5% from parents, carers, and the remaining from young people themselves. But as we grow as a service and become more established, I can only see that growing. And that's just how you make the referrals. And that's the end of the presentation, if anyone's got any questions.
Thanks, Joanne. Gail.
Yeah, thank you. I saw the link was put in the chat, so I went onto it, and it seems from the link that you also do cover Rutland. And I know public health is a shared service between the two, but Rutland wasn't mentioned. So can I just have confirmation that you're going into Rutland schools, please?
It is, yes, we do cover Rutland, but we're Leicestershire. So Rutland Authority, I'll let Kat jump in here. They have a separate delivery. So it is in Rutland, but it's a different team who are delivering it. So I'll let Kat answer that question for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. So, yeah, Teen Health Service is a joint venture between Leicestershire and Rutland, but it's delivered very separately within the Children's Department of each authority. Public Health as commissioners for Rutland do work with the health and wellbeing officers in Rutland to develop the service. It's very similar to Leicester, but it's actually more localised. So it has all the same priorities as Leicestershire, but they also included sleep because this was identified as a local outcome. In Rutland, I can tell you that they've actually been operational for around the same amount of time, 9 months. They've actually seen and had contact with 100 children. So when you think, I think the population is around 2,000 secondary school age children, I believe, in Rutland. And you can see it's quite a significant proportion that we've been able to reach out. So very similar in Rutland, but more specific to the local area, and the health and wellbeing officers are based in all the secondary schools.
Thank you very much.
Is it worth adding that data in if you come back to this board? Because obviously we'll be a joint Rutland and Leicestershire board, so it'd be good to have Rutland's data, if officers can provide that as well, to be added in here to give us the complete picture. That'd be great. Liz.
It's great that you're in all the secondary schools, but what are you doing for the children that are receiving education other than at school? And particularly I'm thinking also of children that are receiving education in specialist units, so SEN children.
Do you want me to come in there, Jo? Or yeah. So as the universal service, Teen Health is accessible to every single child in Leicestershire of secondary school age. The predominant offer is being visible and available to children in all mainstream secondary schools, but for any other children, they can refer directly into the team, and then their referral will be triaged and seen in a community location if they are appropriate for the service. So part of our sort of outcomes is to be that first port of call for children and families to ensure that they get the right service. So it may be that Teen Health Service is involved very briefly just to ensure that they access the right service, but it is accessible to everyone.
Could you pop the referral link in the chat, please? Because I've got some networks that I'd like to circulate it to.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Just a couple of questions from me. What's the C card?
Oh, the C card, it's a sexual so it's for sexual health. The young person would have a card, and they'd take that to their drop-in clinic, and they kind of get it stamped and ticked to say that they've been distributed contraception.
Ah, right. I thought that might be it, but I didn't want to say it in case I was wrong. But no, that's great. Okay. The only other point I want to raise is about vaping. So obviously we're hearing more and more about vaping, especially outside secondary schools and stuff like that. So is that being picked up, and are you doing much work in schools around the dangers of vaping and where they're buying their vapes from, etc.?
We had some consultation with schools at the end of the academic year last kind of July time, just before they broke up. It was the majority of schools highlighted it as a need within the kind of the support that they wanted from Teen Health. We are working in conjunction with Quit Ready, who have been doing a campaign and who are providing schools with materials to use to further educate and help young people understand the risk of what using vaping can do. We are supporting that delivery, so we're promoting it, and we're trying to encourage the schools to use it, not just through ourselves as Teen Health, but in their own delivery and offers through either tutor groups or class delivery. It's I'm going to be really honest, Quit Ready are trying to get young people on board to do some advertising and campaigns around a TikTok video to promote it. I don't think they're quite there yet, but it's very much on the agenda as a priority, and we are working in collaboration to kind of link the schools with the right people to get that support in place for those young people. We as a service have had some referrals that have come through, and we have gone out and worked with young people on a one-to-one around the risks and trying to put some preventative measures in place, and also made any referrals onwards to appropriate services that are needed. So yes, it is very much on the agenda with schools and a priority.
I mean, because we've just heard this week that the actual smoking rates in Leicestershire has dropped hugely, which is fantastic, but our guess is it's probably been replaced by vaping. And we don't actually know the long-term health risks of vaping yet, do we? We don't have any of that information because it's too new to have that. We know the effects of smoking, but not vaping. So yeah, we need to keep that high on the agenda. So keep an eye on that. Les.
Thanks, Chair. So intervention one-to-one with the children, engagement with the schools, great, brilliant, all for it. I'm Blaby DC. Our youth council has been banging on about underage vaping and has actually had it taken to Parliament. What is the programme and strategy to actually talk to mum and dad about their child vaping? Because, you know, we've got issues with 7-year-olds vaping, and therefore we you know, for a 7-year-old, it's really cool. But actually, mum and dad are actually paying for this one way or another. So what's that part of the equation, if there is one, please?
Thanks for your question, Les. Yes, so as a service, we predominantly work with the young person themselves, and we have to also be careful around consent, because we do have a lot of referrals where the young person doesn't want their parent to necessarily know we're working with them, which we have to honour unless obviously there's safeguarding concerns, which we would then discuss with the parent, proportionate to the risk being raised. However, we are developing the website that I mentioned earlier, and on that website will be support that will be directed at parents and carers around vaping. And also as a school, what we're trying to put in place is they have websites and newsletters that go out to parents on a regular basis, and it's putting some promotional materials on there that parents can access or make further inquiries on if they choose to. As a service, we're not necessarily going direct to parents and offering them that support ourselves, but it is something we can work in conjunction with the school around to put some support in place if it's identified. I don't know if you want to add to that, Kat?
Yeah, yes, I suppose you're talking about sort of information sharing and disclosure to the parents when. So I suppose each situation in that case would be situation specific. It would be about the assessment that worker makes. I mean, we don't work with children as young as 7, we're from 11 plus, but each situation is assessed on sort of safeguarding the health needs of that child. The need, you know, data protection doesn't stop us sharing that information with a parent if it's deemed to be in the child's best interest or deemed to be necessary and proportionate to protect that child from coming from harm. So Jo and her team have sort of really regular and quality supervision to discuss any cases where there may need to be a need for information sharing against a child's consent, really. But we have all the safeguarding policies, procedures, training and frameworks in place to support that to happen when there's a need to do that.
As long as there is a route to educate mum and dad as well, where we can. That answers my question. Thank you very much.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Any other questions on the teen health service? No? Okay, thank you. So I'll move on to item 10, which is the public health update, domestic abuse and sexual violence services. I think, Deborah, you're taking us through this.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've been asked to provide a report and an update on the domestic abuse services that are commissioned by the Public Health Department, the Public Health team. A previous report came to this meeting in December 21, and at that point we were going through the procurement, so that was outlining the process that we were going through there. There have been brief updates as well in June of 22 and June of 23 as part of the overall public health. New contracts for the domestic abuse and sexual violence services have been in place since April of last year, and the service system was commissioned with commissioning partners, so that included Leicester City Council, Rutland Council and the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner. So the services that we've got in place now, the service system that we have now replaces the UAVA service that people may have remembered, and that was around for a number of years. So what we have now is a range of services, and I'll outline them. They were in the report. So you have the helpline and engagement service, and that's provided by an organisation called FREVA, and that is commissioned by the Police and Crime Commissioner, and that service operates across Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland. The sexual violence support service, that's also provided by FREVA and commissioned by the Police and Crime Commissioner, and that again operates across Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland. The domestic abuse locality service is provided by LWA, and that's commissioned by ourselves, by Public Health, and that's a specific contract for Leicestershire and Rutland. Leicester City has its own separate contract for that service. And the Leicestershire Safe Accommodation Service provided by WALL, that's commissioned by ourselves, by Public Health for Leicestershire. And again, Leicester City have a separate contract for that service. So that comprises the service system since April 22. And it's worth pointing out as well that these services are funded from existing budgets within each of the commissioning partners. So it's not a part of the Domestic Abuse Act funding that each authority has got. So whilst each of these commissioning partners have their own contracts and separate contract management processes, we operate as a service system, and our providers operate as a service system, and the commissioners have a joint working agreement between us that outlines how we will work together and how the services will work together. And as part of that joint working agreement, there are regular joint commissioners meetings where overall kind of performance is monitored and any issues and concerns across the service system can be discussed and resolved. So that takes place in addition to our individual contract management processes. In terms of progress, all of the services were in place for the 1st of April in 22. There were some initial challenges, it's true to say, for all the services and the commissioners to ensure that the individual services were working as a coherent whole, a coherent system, whilst they were delivering to their own individual specifications. So that was quite a challenge. To make sure that the transition was as smooth as possible, it was agreed that the helpline number would remain the same as it had been for a number of years throughout the UAVA contract. So the helpline and engagement service is the access point to all services, and they undertake that initial assessment and that initial support. So the numbers remain the same to help that transition period. And there was extensive promotion of the new service system throughout the first year of the contracts, with all the services delivering information sessions to a range of different partners and organisations. In terms of overall performance, there were concerns at the beginning of the contracts that were related to the difficulties that we were hearing, that there were difficulties in people getting through to the helpline and engagement service, and that obviously had an impact on referrals and services for the domestic abuse locality service and for the accommodation services. So that primarily related to issues of kind of recruitment and the staffing challenges at the start of the contract that were difficult for the helpline service. But we do know that now the percentage of calls answered has improved significantly, and as far as we're aware, that is no longer a concern. We're not hearing any reports of any challenges there now. The domestic abuse locality service delivered by LWA, overall the service is performing well. They've seen a steady increase in the number of domestic abuse victims starting support each quarter. There has been a drop in the referrals that are coming via the helpline and engagement service each quarter. However, there's been a corresponding increase in referrals that are coming from other sources. So they're still getting those referrals through. They're just coming from a different place. The service is now approaching capacity, and individual caseloads for the workers are higher than ideal, really. And that's due to that continued increase in the referrals received and the high number of cases that need that longer term intensive support. So as a result, there isn't the kind of the throughput. Cases aren't being closed. Individuals are staying with the services for longer, which is creating some pressures. So to manage that, the service is being introduced as sort of stratification, a prioritisation process, but they do make sure that all high risk cases are offered support within 24 hours. The accommodation service, overall, again, the service is performing well. A limited number of referrals that are received via the helpline and engagement service, and a majority of the referrals to that service are coming from other agencies as well. I've attached a performance summary for the first year at the end of this report, so that is quarterly reporting that you can see. In terms of challenges, one of the big ones really was that during the procurement process, the government announced that additional funding to all local authorities as part of the Domestic Abuse Act. That announcement came too late to be included in the procurement that we were doing. What that means is that there's now a kind of a separate work stream of commissioning and service delivery that's related to the Domestic Abuse Act funding. And I'd say one of the challenges really is how we ensure that there's a kind of coherent and coordinated service pathway for victims, really. So that's an ongoing piece of work, and it's something that we're always aware of as more services are coming online via that domestic abuse funding. And as previously mentioned, the locality service is reaching capacity, and whilst the service is developing those kind of innovative ways of managing those referrals and the caseloads and the risk that comes, that they are going to end up operating waiting lists, I would imagine, at some point in the near future. So we continue to monitor that, and we continue to work with the provider. As I say, they're finding ways of managing at the moment. The future plans, the commissioning partners are developing an overarching performance dashboard. I think at the moment we all do our own individual monitoring of those contracts. We are working on picking out key indicators from each of those services to make a more comprehensive dashboard. We've started that, but there's been a lot of staffing changes happening, and so that piece of work is taking a bit longer than anticipated. And another key piece of work that we'll be doing over the coming months is reviewing the joint working agreement, because that was written and agreed at an early stage of the procurement. So we're going to be reviewing that and making sure that that remains fit for purpose. So yeah, that's an update on the services that are commissioned by the public health team. Thank you.
Thanks, Deborah. Les.
Thanks, Chair, and thank you for that, Deborah. Can I just home in on the LWA and the wall numbers that you have there? So I'm just trying to wrap my head around what the kind of underlying bits are. So you're clearly having some more intense work with particular individuals, I'm guessing. Is that a is there any element of those? I assume that they're more complicated, more everything else you can think of cases that you're having to deal with. But is any of that to do you think, with COVID or post-COVID behaviours? So is it something that's a bit newer than it was pre-COVID, if that makes sense? And then the second question, or the same query, is looking at the exits from wall, sorry, I beg your pardon, the exits from the LWA. I presume that planned exit is that the support service is happy. They know the client is where they need to be, and they're safe to be taken off the service. But you've then got the unplanned exits, which are what, 2/3 of the planned exit. So is there it's a horrible question for an incredibly valuable service. Is there a weakness in the support mechanism that we need to look at? So back to you, Chair, and Deborah. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I would need to go and check with our services what they think the impact of COVID is, to be able to answer that. In terms of the planned and unplanned exits, it's certainly something that we've raised with the provider as well, to try and get an understanding of what they mean by unplanned exits as well. A lot of those unplanned exits, they have said, are not necessarily people who are unhappy with the service or aren't getting what they want. Sometimes it's the fact that they've got what they want and they've left, even though the service may feel that they haven't completed the kind of their safety plan or their work plan. That's for some of them, and some of them are people who just no longer attend. I have asked the service to find, we've been asking about finding out a bit more about those unplanned exits, because I think you're right. We need to kind of find out, is it a weakness in the system, or is it a weakness in the reporting?
Yeah, because I think, if I may, Chair, Deborah, I suppose the part concern, anybody who knows me knows I don't do a domestic abuse. It's just it's a red line for me. I guess part of my query or question is, are some of those unplanned exits residual issues about controlling and coercive behaviour, and actually they're being pulled out of the service rather than leaving the service, if that makes sense. But if I could just ask you to kind of dig in a little bit and just get a bit more understanding. Thank you, Chair.
Absolutely. Yes, thank you. Yes.
Just a couple of points from me. I suppose it's quite a complex system when you're just reading a 3-page report. I must have read it about 4 times, because there's different services there commissioned by different people across different LLR areas. City are doing different sometimes, we're together sometimes. So it's quite a complex system. So I'm just wondering how that relates to delivery, because it's quite complex. Do service users know where to go, etc., etc.? So if I'm finding it quite complex, service users must find it really complex. So how are we going to ensure that service users are really clear about what's out there and how they access that support?
Yes, it's a good point. I think, that my answer to that would be, it is a complex system for those of us who are commissioning the system and like at this meeting, also trying to understand it. The intention is, and that's part of the intention of keeping the same helpline number and having the helpline and engagement service as the front door, is that for a service user, for anyone needing those services, there is just one. There's one phone number, there's one helpline, that's your entrance in. The complex bit comes behind that, I suppose, once for the services who are then undertaking the initial assessments and directing people into the right element of support. But everyone who comes into the service has a key worker. So even if someone, for example, if someone enters through the helpline and engagement service and the person they have that first contact with, even though they may end up having some longer term counselling from the locality service, for example, they will still have that kind of contact with the person they initially met. So we're trying to, the intention is for the service user, it isn't complicated, but it's complicated for us. You're right. Yeah. And it's further complicated, I would suggest, as well, by the fact that there is that kind of separate commissioning and service delivery that's come via the Domestic Abuse Act funding. So I think that it is a challenge.
And are we confident in that case that we're not duplicating work? Because I think the real risk is that people are going off and commissioning their own stuff when there's a universal offer, or because they're not aware of. And I just wonder how we avoid that duplication, because this is a really key issue that feeds into so many other services. All the stuff we receive in children and family services is majority is down to domestic abuse issues.
I'll start answering that, but I know Gurjit will want to come in here as well. So when the Domestic Abuse Act funding was announced, as part of that, as people here will know, a needs assessment was undertaken. So that's very much kind of highlighted where the gaps are in the services, in the universal offer, the more general offer. So most of the, I would suggest, the commissioning that's taken place from that domestic abuse funding has looked at where those gaps are, and I have been a part of those discussions as well about the Domestic Abuse Act funding. So we try and work together as far as we possibly can to make sure that there isn't that duplication. Gurjit, did you want to say more on that?
Thanks, Deborah. Through you, Chair. Yeah, I agree. And I think the important bit here is the relationships and the networks. So we've got really positive relationships with our providers. I work really closely with Deborah. She's been brilliant in supporting us to commission and use that DLUC funding to ensure that we're not duplicating. So that's been really good. We're trying to enhance what's already there rather than duplicate and create something new and build on what our current provision and offer is. So yeah, we are really mindful of that, and we're really trying to avoid any duplication or doing something really random that doesn't link in with what we're already doing.
Okay. Thank you. So any other questions or comments on this? Okay. Our next item, thank you very much, Deborah, was Prevent duty. Ian Stubb was due to join us at 11:15, but I'm not aware he's here yet. Is he, Ewan?
No, I don't think he's joined us yet, so we may have to postpone.
So do members want to postpone this to our next agenda item? Because obviously he was due here at 11:15, but he's not arrived yet. So we're happy to defer that to our next meeting.
Chair, it looks like a refresh anyway, rather than anything operationally significant, as far as I can see.
We've not. I don't think we've had any slides come through. Do you know if there was any slides attached during to
No,
presentations?
Ian's quite
Verbal?
careful about circulating slides.
Yeah.
So I haven't received any.
Okay, maybe we can get in touch with them and see if there's anything. Gurjit, did you want to?
Yeah, just to let you know that there is a lot of work going on around Prevent. So I've completely forgotten the word I was going to say, but there's new legislation coming out, new duties coming out. We're working on it across the county. I know Rutland are as well, so we'll ensure that we're all joined up on that. But please do be assured that there is work going on and that we're on top of it. And Ian's been reviewing what we do across Leicestershire and Rutland, and we're in line with what we ought to be doing. So just to assure the board really, and yeah, we'll get Ian into the next meeting.
There is now regional collaboration, isn't there? The members and officers go to. I couldn't get to the last one because I got another meeting, but I think that's been really helpful as well to join up regionally to look at, because there's no cross borders to this either, is there? So it's been really good to join up with regional college. So I hope that continues as well. Okay, we'll delay that to the next meeting then. Ewan, please, if you can just let Ian know. So item 13 was any other businesses. Is anything anyone else who wants to raise? No. And then obviously our date of our next meeting is the same as our domestic abuse board at 10 o'clock. So Friday, the 15th of December. So thank you very much for your time this morning and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks very much.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.